Hi, welcome to the 12th and final lesson of fiction and poetry. Now we're finally going to talk about the blank verse. Okay? So, while many poems are rhymed, poems written in blank verse are not. They are unrhymed poetry that is written in a regular meter, usually iambic pentameter, and this is an extremely flexible form. So, if you're having a little bit of trouble with the Shakespearean sonnet, don't worry about it. We're going to talk about the blank verse. Come to this one and then go back to Shakespearean sonnet. Try that one out afterwards. So, I would like to take a look at the blank verse in Hamlet. Okay? So, let's take a look at our lesson. Good now, sit down and tell me, he that knows, why this same strict and most observant watch so nightly toils the subject of the land, and why such daily cast of brazen cannon and foreign mart for implements of war, why such impress of shipwrights, whose sore task does not divide the Sunday from the week? What might be toward that this sweaty haste doth make the night joint laborer with the day? Who is't that can inform me? So, this does not rhyme. However, in a Shakespearean play, this is how the characters speak. This is the blank verse, okay? It is a verse that is blank. Therefore, it doesn't have the same rhyming, it doesn't have the same form that most other verses do, that most other poetic forms do. So even though one manner of poetic writing is actually named for Shakespeare, obviously the Shakespearean sonnet, he wrote much of his dramatic works in blank verse. If you read through anything that he's written, A Midsummer Night's Dream, Hamlet, King Lear, anything by Shakespeare, you're going to observe the blank verse. It's a very intriguing way of writing. It's a very dramatic way of writing. So when you're writing your fictional pieces, take a step back and see if maybe it would behoove you to practice using a blank verse, to practice getting your characters to speak in a more melodic manner, okay? So while it is still a very flexible form of poetry, it creates this drama. It creates a memorable moment in the play. Most characters do not get to have the speaking roles that Shakespeare's characters do. We don't get to sit down and listen to them really talk from their souls, really explain something. Most of what we use now, obviously, isn't done in the lecture form that Shakespeare wrote. Most of the lines that our characters are going to deliver are going to be very short. It's going to be very short dialogue of one character requesting something, the other answering, and so on and so forth. It's a very give and take. However, when you're writing in blank verse, the character is able to actually command and almost demand the audience's attention for a rather lengthy period of time. If you look at anything, if you're reading A Midsummer Night's Dream, if you look at anything that is spoken by Puck, if you look at anything that's spoken by the lovers, if you look at anything that is spoken by any of these characters, it's going to be in that blank verse. And by using this blank verse, we're able to really see what that character is thinking and how that character is feeling. So let's just take a couple lines from Hamlet. Let's just take the first four. Okay, so we start with, good now, sit down and tell me, he that knows, why this same strict and most observant watch so nightly toils the subject of the land, and why such daily cast of brazen cannon. Okay, so we're asking multiple questions, right? So in Hamlet, we're asking this individual to sit down and someone needs to answer my questions, right? Look at the way that this is spoken, though. We say, sit down and tell me, he that knows, why this same strict and most observant watch so nightly toils. This is a very long way of speaking. This is a very direct way of speaking while still using the music of the line. If we put this into paragraph form and we are using sentences as opposed to lines, it's not going to read the same. So in that case, we would read it as, "Good, now sit down and tell me, he that knows, why is this same strict and most observant watch so nightly toils the subject of the land, and why such daily cast of brazen cannon and foreign mart for implement of war?" Okay, obviously first 5 lines. Okay. This then seems to be a rather lengthy sentence. This is very long. This is very confusing because we're not using the line. We're trying to kind of mash everything together into a single sentence, and it doesn't work. Think about the way that you speak to someone. If you are very flustered or you want a lot of information, you may not come across the same way that you would if you were reading sentences. You might not sit down and say, "Look, tell me why this doesn't make any sense, why this happened, and how you came to think this." That's a really long sentence. I created a run-on sentence due to being flustered, right? So, the characters in Shakespeare and in many other plays speak in this manner because this is the way that we normally speak. Now, if we're creating dialogue in a fictional piece, we're going to divide it up, but we're going to have to use punctuation in more obvious places. The way that the blank verse works, however, we're capable of having the reader pause in places where we would like for the reader to pause. Let's take a different line so that we don't exhaust these. Let's take the third to last line, okay? "What might be toward that this sweaty haste?" Why do we stop on sweaty haste? Why is that so important? Why is that where we wanted to bring attention? Well, what are we pointing out here? We're asking questions about war, right? We're asking questions about why we're fighting like this. And when we say, "What might be toward that this sweaty haste doth make the night joint laborer with the day," when we're speaking and when we are bringing attention to something important, we pause. The line in blank verse forces us to do so, thus causing the reader to comprehend the character on a far deeper level. We're able to see the dramaticness of the line, the drama that the character is creating, right? Okay, let's go back a little bit. Let's look at a couple lines before that. "Why such impress of shipwrights whose sore task does not divide the Sunday from the week? What might be toward that this sweaty haste doth make the night joint laborer with the day?" Again, we're pausing on day, and at the very end we say, "Who is that can inform me?" Obviously, there's a question mark at the end. This is a complete question by itself, right? Who is that can inform me? Who can answer my question? Now, when we have a question mark like this, obviously we're going to pause. And obviously, when we have a question mark like this, our voices go up, right? So when we're performing a piece like this, or when we're reading something that a character is saying, and we get to that very end, it's going to be extremely dramatic. We have built up to that very ending. Who is that can inform me? That final question that is kind of summing up and bringing together all of these other questions. So the character here is saying, "I have these questions. Who can answer them for me?" So pay attention to the drama of that line. Pay attention to the end stop line like that. Because in blank verse, especially in Shakespearean pieces, we have that drama. Look at these words that we end on: cannon, war, task, haste. These are very dramatic, powerful words. So if you're writing it in a fictional piece, if you're writing it in the normal way that we would write prose, you may not be getting everything out of the piece that you would like to be getting. Take a look at using free verse. Try using free verse to write your character's dialogue in, because you're going to find that it's far more dramatic and your piece is going to have far more power once you actually inform the reader of what has the power. Because you as the writer are capable of creating whatever sense you would like. Utilize these tools, and I wish you luck in your writing in fiction and poetry.